On the spot news media, we got the latest news. We don't care about the views, we just representing right. Put local news internationally every night. On the spot, wave that Jamaican flag from left to right. Let's get it right, y'all know the type. We ain't dealing with the hype, we make it take flight.
Yeah, man, my viewers and subscribers, what go on? A blessed and wonderful Monday evening to each and every person out there tuning into On The Spot News Media. Now, my peeps, we have the Andre Blackman Bryan sentencing in full as the Chief Justice Brian Sykes outlines fully how he arrived at the full amount of years to be spent behind bars by the reputed gang leader for the Wandan faction of the Klansman gang that is based in Spanish Town, that is Andre Blackman Bryan. Now, the judge stated that he is to spend the maximum of 39 and a half years. So the video that I'll be playing will be showing you in the courtroom the judge handing down his ruling on the Klansman Wandan gang faction leader Andre Blackman Bryan. But points to note before I play the video for you, my peeps. When the judge states that the sentences is being run concurrently, let me just explain that really quick. Let's just say, for example, he says 10 years on a certain count, 12 years on a certain count, and 14 years on a certain count. When he says concurrently, that means he will only serve the 14 years, as the 14 years is the larger of the three sentences. So all three, the 10 and the 12, would have fallen within the premise of the 14 years. But when he says consecutive now, as the term consecutive means one after the other. So let's say, for example, he got 10 years, 12 years and 14 years on different counts to run consecutively. So he would do the 10 years. Then he would start the 12 years. And upon completion of the 12, then he would start the 14 years, just for examples. So that's the difference between the concurrent sentencing and the consecutive sentencing. All right, my peeps, now listen. But for me, I think that the judge, Justice Brian Sykes, was rather lenient with Andre Blackman Bryan. Now, I would like to hear from you, my peeps, in the comment section after you listen to his deliberation, and tell me what you think. If he was lenient, or you think that justice was served, or you think that he was excessive in giving his sentencing. Listen.
Evidence as outlined in respect of counts 7 and 8, where Mr. Bryan was identified as one of the persons by the church who went over, the group of persons, along with the driver who went over to fisheries and what Mr. Bryan said before he went over to fisheries, they're going to be shelling down over there, and when you look at all the circumstances, including the distribution or at least the visible display of what appeared to be firearms, as well as the Molotov cocktail, which was in open, unimpeded view, according to the driver, made it clear that at the very least, mayhem of some kind involving, at the very least, serious bodily harm and possibly property damage would be taking place that evening. And Mr. Bryan facilitated those intended activities and facilitated the actual occurrence of those activities. So bearing in mind all the circumstances concerning count 7 and 8, And keeping in mind that the maximum penalty is 20 years, and keeping in mind as well that in respect of count 7 and 8, death of 2 persons were the outcome of the activity, it is my view that the starting point here should be 17 years for count 7. Right. In respect of count 8, starting point, in my view, should be 17 years as well, since the whole idea of going over there was to either kill the persons by shooting or by burning or both. It turned out that their bodies were burnt inside the house and they died from gunshot injuries. So in either way, whether it was by arson or by shooting, the clear intention was to kill these 2 persons. So the starting point, in my view, for count 17 and 18 should be 17 years. 7 and 8 should be 17 years. No aggravating features to put it up. Question is whether there are any mitigating features to bring it down. Having regard to all the circumstances here, I think it's a standstill, nothing to bring it up or to take it down. So we remain at 17 years for counts 7 and 8. And in particular because it resulted in the death of 2 persons. They resulted in the death of 2 persons. So now we come to counts 11 and 12. Count 11, facilitating a conspiracy to murder, and count 12, facilitating the actual murder of the same person. Those offenses should be taken together, as in sentences will be concurrent. So what is the appropriate sentence there? I'm just trying to find my notes here. Right. So in respect of the conspiracy to murder, facilitating that offense in respect of count 11. Yes, it is connected to count 12, but count 12 resulted in the death of one individual as distinct from two. So I think the starting point should be lower. And so, in my view, the starting point for the conspiracy to facilitating the conspiracy to murder should be 10 years. It is on count 11. In respect of count 12, the starting point should be 12 years. Why 12 years? Keeping in mind that when you're dealing with count 7, there are two persons who suffered death there. Now we have a situation where you had one person, and so the sentence ought to reflect the difference between two persons dying as opposed to one person dying. I'm not saying that one life is inherently more valuable than another, but the number of persons who die should make a difference, and it does in this particular case. So, in count, did I say what the number of years should be? Respect of count 12? 12 years, right. 12 years, right. Then now you have count 6. Which is a standalone count. And trying to give effect to the different principles and weighing the different principles that I outlined earlier in respect of count 6. It resulted in the death of one person. It's a shooting death, similar to count 12. I mean, there are differences in the sense that in respect of count 12, it is said that Mr. Bryan drove by or was near to the vicinity of where the gentleman in count 12 was shot and killed, but that is not a sufficient difference to make it more aggravating or less aggravating, as the circumstances are very similar. So in respect of count 6, the starting point is also 12 years there. We're now at 1, 2, 3, 4. Count 15. That involved the murder of the Rastaman that was facilitated, planned and encouraged by Mr. Bryan. So the starting point there, to me, again, is 12 years. And that takes us to count 19, that was facilitating conspiracy to murder someone unknown, very similar to count 10. And so the starting point there is count 11. Count 11 is 10 years. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's one that's missing. I've dealt with counts. Just a moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I dealt with counts 11 and 12. Have I covered all of them? Right. Just making sure. Right. Right. So where we are now is right. So count 1, I'd said was 20, 27. Right. So starting point then for count 1, 27 years. Count 7 and 8, 17 years each. Count 11 and 12, count 11, 10 years. Count 12, 12 years. Count 6, 12 years. Count 15, 12 years. Count 19, 10 years. Starting points. Now, as I said, in none of these, I see any aggravating factors to increase the number of years. Are there any mitigating factors in these circumstances to warrant a reduction, other than the fact of no previous convictions? I am not convinced that there are any mitigating factors here to warrant any reduction. So the starting point remains the end point. So what Mr. Bryan has been in custody 5.5 years. So when they take away the 5.5 years, so in count 1, that leaves us with 21 and a half years. 5 from, yes. For count 6. That leaves us with 6.5 years. I'm going to reduce for all counts. All counts. Respect of count 7. That would be 11.5 years. For count 8, it's 11.5 years. For count 11, that's 4.5 years. For count 12, that's 6.5 years. For count 15, that's 6.5 years. And for count 19, that's 4.5 years. Okay. Now, I'd said that I'd agreed with Mr. McFarlane that the sentences on counts 7 and 8 should be concurrent. So, sentences on counts 7 and 8 are concurrent. So that's 11.5 years there. In respect of the sentences on count 11 and 12 concurrently, to run concurrently, so that gives you a maximum there of 6.5 years. Right. So that leaves us now with counts 6, 15, and 19 and what to do with them. And count 1, what to do with them. Now, in this case, I think that the question of consecutive sentences should be considered. What is the principle relating to consecutive sentences? In principle, it's permissible. What the decisions indicate is that where the offenses arise out of the same circumstance, then in principle you should not have consecutive sentences. The court should look to see whether they can have a substantial sentence on the major offense, and then the other sentences be made to run concurrently along with the major offense. But consecutive sentences are appropriate if the circumstances are such that the sentences, unless made to run consecutively, would not reflect the true criminality of what was involved. Here we have a gentleman who was a leader and a part of an organization that involved murder, shooting, and at least arson as well. We have a situation in which 4 persons died. Yes, 4. Effect of count 19. We had Dooley, we had Mr. Bryan, Miss Walker, Outlaw, and who else? And the Rastaman. There's 5 persons who died as a result of his activity. But for, as I said, the quirk in our criminal practice and procedure, he may very well have been prosecuted for the full offense of murder. But we are where we are with that. So, in my view, there should be consecutive sentences to reflect the full scope of the criminality and to ensure that the level of offending, the scale of the offending, the scope of the offending, the extent of the offending are adequately addressed at this phase of the trial. So, this is where we are now. So I have count 1, which is 23 years. Right. Let me cut and paste here. Cut. Right. Count 1, which is 21 and a half years. And I had indicated that the unindicted offenses had established that Mr. Bryan is a leader of the criminal organization. And then the indicted offenses also established that he was a leader of the criminal organization, but they extended the scope over which the offenses occurred and therefore enabled the Crown to adduce all of that evidence to establish that he was the leader. And in that context now it was leader of a violent organization. So that is how we end up now at the 21 years. I have also said that the sentences on count 7 and 8 are concurrent, and the sentences on counts 11 and 12 are concurrent. So, the sentences now on counts 6, 15, and 19. Yes? Count 6, 15, and 19. are to run concurrently with the sentence on count 1. Sentences on 6, 15, and 19 to run concurrently with the sentence on count 1. Got that, Mr. Registrar? Got that? So you have the sentence for count 1 and the sentence for counts 6, 15, and 19 to run concurrently with the sentence on count 1. Got that? Okay. Right. Now, the sentence on counts 11 and 12. With me so far? Sentences on counts 11 and 12 to run consecutive to the sentence on count 1. With me so far? And now the sentences on counts 7 and 8. Yes? Sentences on count 7 and 8 to be consecutive to the sentence on counts 11 and 12. With me? The sentence is on counts 11 and 12. So the sentence on count 6, 15, and 19 concurrently with the sentence on count 1. Sentence on count 11 and 12 consecutive to the sentence on count 1. And count 7 and 8 consecutive to the sentences on counts 11 and 12. Everybody got that? There's 2 consecutive sentences. You got that? I've covered all the counts. I've covered all the counts, yes? So it's 21 and a half plus 6 and a half plus 11 and a half. It's 21 and a half plus 6.5 plus 11.5. That's a total of 39.5. Got that? Got that, Madam Court Reporter? Okay, right. So that's it then for Mr. Bryan. You can please remove him from the dock, please, Mr. Bryan. That's 39.5 years in all. Okay?